What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake KBO Daily Fantasy Sports Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms listed above or directly at wisetake.com. We are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. So go check us out at wisetake.com right now. Everything on the site is free. We're not charging anything at the moment while everybody goes through this quarantine madness and no American traditional sports or regular sports, or at least sports in a limited capacity. So go check it out, man. We got a lot of KBO coverage. I do my projections are up there, available to be downloaded. The cheat sheets are up there, or the cheat sheet. We only cover DraftKings right now. I do a breakdown article, a little preview action, and then of course just stream. So it's all at wisetake.com. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Do me a favor and hit the notifications bell, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss out on any of the free content we do. We cover a multitude of sports right now. We got some NASCAR action going. We got, this KBO grind going, which I'm enjoying. And, I plan on doing some League of Legends stuff, possibly, depending on what the schedule looks like. If we get more than 2 game slates, obviously 2 game slates are tough to get into, but anything more than a 2 game slate, and we're going to try to bang out some League of Legends stuff. So I'm not really big on that. That's something I had to learn during this break to kind of stay afloat, but Dwayne James, what's up, man? Dwayne James in the chat says, here he is, the one and only CK013. What up, big boy? He's the real GOAT, not MJ or LeBron. Oh, you're too kind, man. You're too kind. He said it, not me. I can't say something like that about myself, and people will come at me, man. Those LeBron fans, those MJ fans will come at me hard. So, but fuck it, man. Bring it. Let's go. Yeah. So I think it's a pretty good slate. Pretty interesting. Yesterday's slate, I got real lucky. I didn't do particularly well, but I did well overall. I got lucky and unlucky at the same time. Lucky because I did have one team in a $33 that did well, finished third place for $1,000, which is cool. Unlucky because all I needed was a double. I think if I would have gotten like a single, I think I needed 3 points to take second place for $2,000, and I needed a double to take first place for $5,000. You know what I mean? And I just needed a double. I had 3 players up with I'm talking late innings, like ninth inning status. And the guys in front of me did not have any of them. And 0 for 3. On top of that, to make things worse, I was already in second place. The way I got passed from second place was by, what's his name, on Doosan. After Fernandez, it was like Choi, who was I think it was 0 for 3 with a walk, and he just blooped the double. Just popped the double, happened to hit. It was basically a pop fly, but he hit it where nobody was. And of course, that's a RBI double, and the dude passed me by about 4 points. That's how it ended. So the stuff my highest exposures were not my best teams. I got lucky, and I had like 10% Samsung, and one of them kind of caught fire and went. And it was a Samsung Doosan game stack with a Kiwoom catcher. So a little bit of luck. I think the Spanier and Yang were my pitchers. But yeah, man, it's the bad beats. But the positive, you try to stay positive because it's like we're around it every night. We're always a home run away, a double away from something big. And that's the positive, but at a certain point, it gets a little frustrating because you're like, dude, just for once, just let something go my way. But, that's kind of selfish thinking because obviously a bunch of things went my way in order for me to get up there in the first place. So I need to be a little bit more positive thinking, right? George Killian says, Kiwoom best tonight, possibly. We'll get into it. There's a lot of good offense. The reason I like this slate is because there's a lot of good, there's good pitching, there's good offenses, there's a nice blend of both. So I think the pools will be a little bit bigger for me today, but I do like the idea that we have options. And Kiwoom is one of those options. Kevin Lloyd says, I got deep into the LOL research. It's fun stuff. It's a lot of fun, man. Anybody that plays baseball and is or NHL DFS and you understand how stacking works, and League of Legends is right up your alley, man. I was just saying, you don't really have to understand the concept of the game. There's some numbers you can look at. I got projections we'll use. And that's I don't know nothing about League of Legends, the actual game, but we were playing DFS and we were doing pretty well, so I'll be going after it. Marcus F says Jose Fernandez fade screwed me from getting 500. Oh, Marcus, that's rough, man. Yeah, he was pretty popular. So once he hit that home run, it was just like, oh. I had a lot of them. I'm not gonna pretend I didn't, but I'm just trying to empathize with you feeling your pain because I understand. We've all been there, and that's rough. When you fade the chalk, you're being bold, you're doing something brave, and when it doesn't work out, you just feel like an ass. But over the long haul, if your goal is to really take down first place contests, that's probably the right way to think. Like I'm not big on like I'm not gonna fade it just cause it's chalk, but if it's chalk, my preconceived notion is gonna be okay. Well, how could we do this and get different, or how underweight do I want to go? You know what I mean? Kevin Lloyd says Doosan is going to be super chalk tonight. I agree to an extent. They're going to be chalk. I think they'll be the most popular, but we have a lot of good offenses that we'll get into. So I think we're going to see some ownership fairly spread out more than we have. But I agree with you. I think they'll be the most popular though. So I do agree they'll be chalk. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Hit that like button if you haven't already. I've seen a lot of you already hit that before you even got in here. That's really, really cool, man. That gets me all motivated and hyped up and, love it. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into this with our first game, the KT Wiz visiting the LG Twins. We got Min Kim on the mound for the Wiz and Woo-Chan Cha for LG. Starting off with Min Kim, we'll take a look at his statistics from 2019. So, as you can see here, 4.96 ERA last year, 4.65 FIP, 1.593 WHIP, only a 13.5 K rate, and a 2.37% home run rate, which is over the league average, I believe, from last year. So let's take a look at what he's doing this year so far. It's been rough for him. 9 ERA, 5.5 xFIP, 1.8 WHIP. K's still struggling, and his home run rate is extremely high right now. So as you can see, there's a few of these guys so far this season that are struggling in this department. I do like LG's offense, just to kind of get that out the way, I guess. We'll take a look and analyze that real quick. One of the reasons I like them is, number one, they're a good offense. They're a good team. Roberto Ramos is like your mainstay. He's like the anchor of this offense, right? 10.71% home run rate this season. Now, at some point, you expect those numbers to kind of decline back to at least somewhere what he did last year, which even that last year, 6% home run rate basically is pretty insane to finish with. But you expect it to go back at some point, but doesn't necessarily have to be now. There's a lot of games left. So what I like about LG also is relative to some of the sectors we talked about Doosan. Well, Doosan's prices are going to be a little high. Outside of Hyun Soo Kim, who's a former major leaguer, they're all pretty affordable. The next most expensive guy is Min Sung Kim at 3,800. I don't know why Roberto Ramos continues to get played out like this, but our projections like him. I know LG was looking like a pretty strong stack, so this is just one of the options. They actually have the second highest implied run total on the slate at 5.5. I shouldn't say implied run total. This is the Vegas over-under, not Vegas, Pinnacle Sportsbook. They're a big sportsbook overseas. They take a lot of sharp action over there. That's why I like to use them. And also they have the information, and they have the LG run total set at 5.5, the over-under for the team total. And I think Doosan's the only one that's higher with 6.5, which I haven't seen yet this year. So Doosan, massive. With that said, though, I do like LG quite a bit in terms of what you look at what they did last year as a team, and there's a lot of healthy WOBAs over 300. Obviously, the ISOs are reserved to a select few players, mainly Ramos. But we have some upside here. I do think there's some stuff to work with, and they're cheap relative to that upside in the matchup, man. Matchup looks juiced. Woo-Chan Cha is their pitcher. We can take a look at what he's doing so far. Let's take a look at what he did last year first. Woo-Chan Cha was mediocre. Right? When I look at these numbers, I see just mediocre. Not necessarily like, I just want to attack this guy, but definitely like mediocre. A 4.12 ERA, a 4 FIP, a whip of 1.426, K percentage 16.99, home run percentage 2.19. So everything's just kind of mediocre. Home run percentage is a little bit above average. Strikeout rate is probably around average. Whip is probably around average. Everything. He's just mediocre as fuck. If we look at what he's done this year, we'll see he's got a 4.29 whip, but a 5.63 ERA, so maybe he's been a little unlucky. A 1.5 whip, a 26.76% strikeout rate, which is awesome, but based off of what he did last year under a larger sample, we don't necessarily expect him to sustain a strikeout rate that high. And he's got a 4% home run rate, so he's kind of giving up the long ball when he is giving up the contact. And he's going to be playing he's going to be playing the KT Wiz, which is another pretty good offense. If you look real quick at some of the players they got. Let me see. Let's take a look at some of the players they got on the KT Wiz. We've got Mel Rojas, definitely, a big bat. And I I forgot. They think they have an injury. Kang is hurt. That's actually a pretty big blow to this offense. Their guy Kang that everybody was playing, that young kid that was just beasting, he's hurt. So that's a little bit of a blow to the stack. But I still think I lean towards playing KT Wiz more than I plan on playing Wu Chan Cha, and that could be more because I have other options. So the KT Wiz are a little bit down the list for me, but they are on the list of a team I want to make sure I have exposure to. If you look last year, they got a couple guys that have some speed. We've got Won-Soo Kim, who had 24 stolen bases last year. Min Hee Kim, who had 22 stolen bases. Even Taegon Oh had 19. So we got some speed that could really get these guys rolling. Maybe a guy like Mel Rojas can get them in for you. All that dirty fun. So I think that I think KT is in play. I'm not really big on any of the pitchers, but LG is the stack I prefer in this game, if you will. Thank you very much. Next up, we're going to the Hanwha Eagles. They're going to be visiting the NC Dinos once again. We got Minwoo Kim going up against Drew Rosinski. We'll start off with the pitchers. Let's get real correct. Minwoo Kim. So last year, 6.75 ERA, 4.48 FIP. A little unlucky, it looks like. Whip was 1.618, about less than a 15% strikeout rate, 1.9% home run rate. So another like average. Obviously, his numbers look a little worse than Wu Chan Cha's last year, but they're not that different. Chan Cha had a higher home run rate. He had a slightly higher K percentage. The whip could go hand in hand with the ERA FIP differential, so you don't want to blame the entire whip. It doesn't account for luck. So if he got a little unlucky, which according to his ERA FIP differential, it looks like he got a little unlucky. Very similar. Obviously, he's playing the Dinos, which is another tough offense. But the Dinos have actually been striking out quite a bit this year. Now, that is in no way an endorsement to play him. I'm not that interested. He's coming off a really good game, which is why his projection is actually not that bad. And if you look at what he's done so far, a 1.96 ERA, but it's not really supported. Right, we got a 4.32 FIP, which indicates maybe he's getting a little lucky. I'm sure the 27.54 Ks are helping, but he's still susceptible to the long ball, and his whip is 0.709. We expect that to go up and be somewhere closer to what he got last year, maybe even if it's around 1.5 or so. So there's some regression I think that's going to be coming for Kim. We can take a look and see. I'll take a look and we'll take a look and see who he did this against. I just kind of forgot. We knew at one point, right? But a lot has changed. Minwoo Kim. So his first game, 5 Ks in 4 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs for 11 DraftKings points against SK. Against Kia, he struck out 8 in 7 innings, which is pretty impressive. Then he played a lot of Giants, struck out 6 in 7 innings. So I don't know. I wish we had the swinging strike percentage stats and like those kind of things we use in MLB to really give us an idea of how good he's actually doing. Because what I see is an FIP that's significantly higher than an ERA. I see a strikeout rate that looks awesome through those last 2 games, but from what we saw last year in a larger sample is not really his kind of deal. And I'm also seeing a guy giving up a lot of home runs. So I'm tempted to lean towards the Dinos, and I think most people who approach the situation would lean that way. But I think I may actually grab a little bit just because he's really low owned. Now we have other options. There's guys that are priced right around him that I prefer, but just for the sake of ownership, I don't think anyone's going to play him, so it's kind of tempting. But I do think that I will have more shares of the Dinos than I will of Hanwha. I'll kind of rank through the offenses at the end that I was getting. I think the Dinos were either 3rd or 4th on that list. I think it's like Doosan, LG, Kiwoom, and then the Dinos I think are next on that list for me. So I do plan on attacking Minwoo Kim, even though he's been really good. I just like for the sake of game theory, just pointing out that he will be very low owned, and he's been really good lately. But again, the numbers that I'm looking at aren't really supporting that he should sustain that. The Dinos haven't hit as many home runs this year. Last year they led the league in homers. Their roster's a little bit different this year, so we don't necessarily want to assume they're going to do it again. But if they do get hot and start hitting dingers again, man, this guy's giving up home runs at a pretty high rate, 4.35%. Which is actually really high. So small samples, but still, he's giving up homers. That's the point. So that's that. Looking at their offense, Sungbum Na is the first guy that kind of comes to mind. A lot of talk. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see him. I mean, look what he's doing though. A 375 WOBA and a 211 ISO. Like, part of me, he's already got 4 home runs, which is what he hit last year. He got hurt last year. He had knee surgery. So I think this guy is genuinely good. I think he's the real deal. Really good player, and I expect him to continue this little tear. EOG Yang, if he's in there, the catcher, best hitting catcher in the game. His WOBA and ISO are pretty much right on cue, trending in the right direction towards what he did last season. Aaron Altaire's finally getting going. You can see his ISO and his WOBA have risen now to 229 and 341, so he's finally starting to get going, I think, which is definitely cool. He's extremely expensive, but that's just going to keep his ownership fairly low. Minwoo Park leading off here at 18 stolen bases last year, so there's a lot of guys to come get from this area. The total in this game wasn't as high as some of the other ones out there, so Vegas doesn't seem to have too much faith. We don't blindly follow that by any means, but I do like the Dinos as a stack where they're probably, like I said, 4th or 5th on that list. We'll go through it at the end, and I'll list it in the article. As far as Basinski, he's playing Hanwha. Hanwha looks like they're starting to heat up just a little bit. If you look at their numbers from last year, they really don't have a lot of power. Jared Hoying should be back. I think he is back. He's going to provide some power. He's got some stolen base upside. So if you are going to stack Hanwha, he's, to me, just a core play from that stack. I'm not saying Hanwha is a core play. I'm saying him from that stack is a core play. Hanwha will be extremely low owned. I think some people will even take the pitcher, obviously, against them, Drew Basinski, who we'll talk about here in a second. But if you look at Hanwha, they just don't have a lot of power. That's kind of like the drawback. Now, again, Jared Hoying helps because now at least you got 2 guys with respectable ISOs from last season. But this is not typically an offense that's going to do a whole ton. Now, they're playing a pitcher who has struggled a little bit this year relative to what he did last year. My bad, I had the wrong screen on the whole time. I always do that to y'all. So Drew Basinski is 9,300, most expensive pitcher on the slate, and he was good last year. He was one of the better pitchers in the KBO. A 3.66 FIP, a 1.179 WHIP, 16% K rate, which is around average in this league. 1.78 home run percentage, probably somewhere around the average, maybe slightly above, but pretty good pitcher. And he's playing Hanwha, who's one of the offenses that we expect to be bad by the end of the season. If you look at what Basinski's done this year so far, a 4.04 FIP, a 1.558 WHIP. The Ks are slightly up, home run percentage slightly up, but he's not that far off from where he was last year. So it's a good matchup. I think that I don't expect him to go out there and get a ton of strikeouts. We can take a look at the projected strikeouts, projected lineup for Hanwha and see how many strikeouts are. So I guess we're expecting somewhere around 21%. That's actually pretty good. He's in the pool. He's not my favorite pitcher. I think that we have some options. We got that Jokish dude. I call him the Joker of the KBO. We've got that Tae-Un, whatever his name is, Tae-Un, and we've got Aaron Brooks. So we actually have some arms. So I'm not super eager to pay 9.3 for a guy that strikeout rate isn't typically that high, but I respect the fact that he is playing Hanwha. I expect that he's home, and I respect that he's a pretty decent pitcher, even if he is pitching to contact more than I'm comfortable with. So I'll have some, but he's not necessarily my favorite pitcher, if we'll leave it at that. So for the most part for me, it's pretty much all Dinos in this situation. I don't like anything from the Dinos like number 1, but in terms of sides of the games, I do prefer the Dinos in this game, both from a pitching perspective and, of course, from the stack itself. We'll just see how much I actually end up with. That'll be what we see. Let me pop in the chat real quick. I'm just popping in here. What we got here? Kevin Lloyd says Tae-Un Kim is my guy. I feel you. Smoke Monster, do you like Brooks? Yeah. I definitely like Brooks. We'll talk about him. Kevin Lloyd says everyone should like Brooks, absolutely, and we'll get into why in just a second. But I agree, Kevin. I think he's going to be highly owned for sure. Yeah, play Brooks in cash. I would agree with that. That's just what I expect most people to do, based off his price and everything else. Let's keep it rolling. We've got the Kia Tigers and the SK Wyverns. Kia Tigers, SK Wyverns. Aaron Brooks, here we are, against Tae-Un Kim. I like both these pitchers a good amount. Aaron Brooks is probably the best looking option on the slate when you consider price. When price is factored in and everything, he's probably one of the better options, or probably the best looking on paper anyway. He's a big favorite going up against SK, who has been very attackable lately. Their offense has really struggled so far this year. They got off to a horrible start. There was supposed to be a pretty good team, and they got off to this horrendous start. I don't know what the fuck happened. So Aaron Brooks is in a really good position. We got Tae-Un Kim on the other side, who we have a little bit of a smaller sample for, but has been pretty impressive from what we've seen. We'll start off with Mr. Brooks in this situation, Mr. Brooks. So There's no 2019 for Brooks. These numbers are all 2020 because he didn't pitch in the KBO, and I don't like comparing them AAA or whatever, finding minor league stats. I want the real thing. So we're just going with him blindly. But he has a 3 ERA and a 1.21 FIP. So you're telling me even with a 3 ERA, he's been a little unlucky. A 1.278 WHIP, basically a 23% strikeout rate, which in this league is solid. And he hasn't given up a home run yet. And he's playing an SK team, like I said, that's struggling, man. They're 2-13. They've really gotten off to a slow start. They got a lot of young guys who they just called up, and they sent down some of the older guys who weren't producing. So I mean, it's hard not to. What's not to like? I like Aaron Brooks a pretty good amount at this point. He projects as the highest point per dollar player on the slate for us. So I'm sure I'm going to end up with a lot of him. He's, like I said, to me, him and the Joker are 1 and 2 on this slate for me as my main 1 and 2. With that said, Taehyun Kim is respectable. I think the numbers he's putting up, everything like that, we can kind of take a look. You can see he pitched out of the bullpen most of last year. And he was solid out of the bullpen, really good out of the bullpen. We want to temper our expectations when you look at his 2019 numbers because he came out of the bullpen. But we're starting to get a little bit of a sample for him as a starter this season anyway. But last year out of the bullpen, he was awesome. 2.96 FIP, 1.263 WHIP. Like, you see why they elected him to become a starter. Almost a 26% K rate. If we look at what he's done so far this year, a 3.10 FIP, which, yeah, okay, he's been a little bit lucky relative to his ERA, but he is still a really good FIP. 19% K rate is not as high as that 26 he was flashing last year, but 19 in this league, almost 20, is still really good. So I do like him. What I don't like is Kia's, at least so far this season, has been a little lower on the strikeout totem pole. So that worries me just a little bit. In that sense. So I do prefer Aaron Brooks. I think that Taehyun Kim will be a lot lower owned. He is an underdog, but he is at home. It's not that I'm like super afraid of Kia's offense, but it is irritating how they have not been striking out as much. And you can kind of see, like, maybe this trend won't continue because it looks like some of these guys struck out a little bit more last year than they are this year, so maybe that'll balance out. But I'm with you guys in the chat. I see a lot of you guys in the chat like Taehyun Kim. I think he'll be lower owned because I don't think a ton of people are going to want to take pictures from the same game. People get greedy and they want to win, and you can only get one to win, right, in that situation. So I'm cool. I'll have some exposure to Taehyun Kim, but I will have more Aaron Brooks and Joker, who we're going to talk about here in a second. With that said, I'm not really on the offenses because I like the bats. Now, that I think that most people are going to go to that situation. We're going to see this game be extremely low owned offensively. I don't mind grabbing some one-offs of guys like Preston Tucker, who's been relatively hot, or grabbing like a Jamie Romack or something like that. Him and Choi have a lot of improvement that has to come their way, mostly Choi. But like Choi, for instance, a 404 WOBA last year, a 259 so far this year, 227 ISO last year, 106 so far this year, 29 homers last year, 1 so far this year. So like I said, they got some improvement coming at some point. But again, I'm looking more at the pitching. I'll have more Brooks, but I'm more still looking at the pitching here in this game. Next up, we got the mighty Doosan Bears. We've got Raul Alcantara going up against Daewoo Kim. We'll start off with Mr. Alcantara. So it's similar to him. Well, no, I think he was in the league last year, right? Yeah, okay. He was here last year. So last year, Alcantara, 3.68 FIP is solid. What I don't, the 13.81% K rate really bothers me. Now he's playing Samsung today. A team that strikes out a little bit more and is not typically as good offensively. I don't mean to be dissing them. They just won me $1,000, but still, we have to take things for what they are. If we look at the 2020, what he's done so far this year, the FIP is still solid at 3.27. The Ks are up at 20.78%, but I just don't see him going from 13% to 20% for real. So I think there's some inflation there. I think that we're going to see that kind of drop. Now, it may not be against Samsung because, like I said, it's a pretty good matchup. And I think he's coming off of like a really good game, right? I'm pretty sure he's coming off like a really good fucking game. I'm going to look it up right now. It was a day. I didn't have much of him. Yeah, he put up a 32 against Kia. He's had 9 strikeouts and 7 innings against Kia, so I guess fuck what I said about them not striking out as much and fire away on Taehyun Kim. But in all seriousness, the game before that against a lot of Giants, he had given up fucking 12 hits and only had 4 Ks. So I guess it was just kind of his night. And lineups matter. You got to pay attention to what lineups are put out. Lineups do fucking matter. You know, it's things you got to pay attention to. But I'm okay with them. I just don't trust the strikeout rate, you know. And again, Samsung is there. I'm gonna have some, but again, I don't think he's gonna crack my top 3 in terms of pitchers. Maybe I get somewhere around 20%. It's like I'm always gonna play the pitcher that's playing Samsung at least a little bit because they provide that kind of upside. But it's like they're huge favorites here. He's backed by a powerful offense and he's cheap, so I'm fine with you guys grabbing exposure. I just always go for guys that I think have higher strikeout upside, and I'm not sold on that Alcantara shit, man. He had 3 Ks through 6 innings against LG in his first game. He had 4 Ks through 5 innings against a lot of Giants, giving up 4 earned runs. All of a sudden, he had that awesome game where he had 9 Ks in 7 innings. It just kind of came out of nowhere. So I don't know. The matchup is right. I don't know. I just prefer the other guys. But maybe everybody's going to think that. Maybe his ownership's going to be low. I don't know. He is coming off of an awesome game, so I can't say shit about a ceiling thing because he showed he's got that ceiling. Now, what I do know for sure is Doosan is in a really good situation. That we know. This guy, Daewoo Kim, was a bullpen guy last year. I think he had 44 games out of the bullpen last year. Only relief. You're talking about pitching like maybe 1 batter, 1 inning at a time, things like that. And still has horrendous numbers. Samsung's bullpen altogether is atrocious. If you watched that game at all, or you followed it at all against Doosan was not necessarily like they showed it. Things were starting off slow, but that bullpen is horrendous, man. They had one guy who did pretty good in the beginning, and once he got pulled, it was just, dudes that couldn't throw strikes. It was guys throwing meatballs. Like Jose Fernandez was given a complete meatball when he hit that home run, man. So I'm all for Doosan. They'll be the stack once again I have the most of. Just gonna hope I get the right contrarian pieces mixed in with them because they will be fucking chalk. But Daewoo Kim was terrible out of the bullpen. 5.21 FIP, 15.81 K rate, 4.35% home run rate. Man, this dude came out of the bullpen. This bullpen dude supposed to come in for relief. This dude comes in and just he's more like a blood thinner, man. He comes in and just makes that shit worse. Looking at Daewoo Kim so far this year, we haven't seen much of him at all. 4.1, so like these stats are not even really worth looking at, except for the 8% K rate if you want to get an idea. He's barely pitched this year, so I love Doosan, man. I got no arguments against them. I'm okay with Alcantara. I like some of the other pitching options better, but he projects well for us, Alcantara, like to be completely honest. So I may have to make an adjustment just to kind of get the guys that I want a little higher, to make sure I get a little bit more of them. Mainly probably Jokic is really the dude that I'm referring to. I'm gonna take care of that right now, actually. DK Pitchers, the Joker, where you at, bro? Jokish. If I just do like that, it should help. Boom, it kind of helped a little too much, so we'll just do something like that. And I'll mess around with it after the show, but somewhere around there is fine. Okay, maybe a little bit more than that, right? And is that the magic number? Yeah, I think that's all right there. So, and we're gonna get to that game in a second, right? But yeah, Doosan it up, Doosan City. I know it's chalky and you're getting tired of it. We have other options, so there's other stacks you can roll with, no doubt. But theirs is pretty fucking juicy, and like I said, they have a 6.5, which is the highest I've seen so far this year, implied team total over under. They're expensive, at least a lot of the guys, the ones you want, like Jaewon Kim, Jose Fernandez, but there's plenty of value to work in around them. They're a good offense. Like I said, Samsung, their bullpen is just looking horrendous, and this guy looks horrendous. So I don't know. I guess maybe they're just trying to showcase these guys on TV. I don't even fucking know. But Doosan, that's pretty easy right there. Last game, we've got the Kiwoom Heroes visiting the lot of Giants, a whole lot of Giants. The Giants broke the slate yesterday, man. Shout out to them. The 2 teams that did beat me in that $33, again, I took 3rd place. The 2 teams that did beat me had a lot of Giant stacks. And, that was just part of it, man. Watching Dixon Machado, he played so terribly, and then all of a sudden, he came with that clutch of double in the top of the 9th, clutch for the people who rostered him, and it just kicked me right in the balls, man. I was sitting pretty until that point, and both guys had him. So they both had Giants, so I got screwed either way by that, and that really sucked. But anyway, we've got Jokic, the Joker of the KBO, going up against Mbak Lee, another bullpen game coming from the Giants. So we'll get into Jokic first. I kind of alluded to you guys that I do like him. So looking at Jokic was here in 2019, a 3.02 FIP, 18.9% K rate, Whip was really low. Home run percentage really low. He's just a flat out good pitcher. We look at 2020, and obviously this is a very unique year, not just for him, but for everybody involved, but especially the American players. So his first start, he threw 66 pitches against Kia. He didn't do bad. 4 Ks, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 66 pitches because he had just come back from the United States. There was the quarantine thing for 2 weeks going on, so he kind of had to be stretched out. His second game, he threw 83 pitches against Samsung, 7 Ks, 3 hits, no earned. Most recently, he played LG. He only threw 72 pitches, which was a little worrisome. I don't know why he only threw 72 pitches, but even with those 72 pitches, he went 6 innings, had 3 Ks, only 1 walk, 2 hits, no earned run. So went for 21.7 DraftKings points with only 72 pitches to work with. 83 against Samsung, went for 29. I think this guy's got tremendous ceiling. I don't know if they're going to let him rip and just kind of let him show it off, but I think he does have that ceiling if they decide to just kind of let him go. So I don't like the fact that they're not really letting him go. That's a little frustrating, and if I'm looking at it, at his game logs, like it didn't. I don't know. There were points last season where they're letting him rip, but it doesn't seem like it's right now. A lot of Giants exploded. They did very well, but they are still projected to be a bottom tier offense, and I think at some point they will return to that. Just because if you look at the numbers of these guys that are doing some of these things, obviously Byung-Hun Min and Jiangwoo Zhang or whatever, these guys are good. They wholly solid. But if you look at the players around them in between, they're not typically all that well. E-Hop's son is hitting way over his head from last year. Even his ISO was up from last year. So you kind of expect some of these. I know the BABIPs for a lot of these guys were really high. And if you look at the strikeout rates for for this particular season, there's a couple guys that don't really strike out a ton, but struck out a little bit more last year. And then you have a couple guys that really do strike out quite a bit, man. Guys like Bo Jun Jung and Dong Hee Han. So it might be a good opportunity. This guy's got some nasty stuff. I do like Jokic a lot. Him and Brooks are probably my 2 favorite pitchers. But again, it's a fairly deep pitching slate. So I'm going to have a lot of these guys who I talked about, but these are probably the 2 I'm going to have the most of. And then, Mbak Lee, man, similar to what we just talked about with that Samsung dude. This guy was a bullpen dude last year. He only had like 15 games last year, so Daewoo Kim, we had a pretty good sample out of the bullpen with 44 games. And Mbak only had like 15 last year, and he was awful also. A 6 FIP, an 11.6 something ERA, a 3 WHIP, a 9.46% K rate, and a 2.7% home run rate. We look at what he did this year, he's barely really, it's not even worth it. He's barely had any time out there. He's pitched two total innings. So again, like, we're looking at an opener status, a lot of Giants. So it's basically a bullpen game for the Giants as well. So I'm with the Kiwoom stack, man. I'm with the Kiwoom offense. We see that starting pitching could be tough to come by in this league. You could imagine how the bullpens must be. And like just from what I've seen so far, a lot of the high scores, a lot of it is because the bullpens are so fucking bad. So, it's been chilly over there in Korea. It's not like we've had great baseball weather. It's been kind of chilly, and we're seeing some relatively high scores. Not necessarily massive amounts of home runs, but the scores in general is because these bullpens are fucking terrible. So I do like Kiwoom. If I had to rank things, now I'll say a couple things about these guys. Number 1, check the status of Ha Sung Kim. He's the number 2 hitter normally. If he's in there, this dude is a beast. Number 1, you can see last year, 387 WOBA, 183 ISO. So far this year, 357 WOBA, 193 ISO. He had 19 homers last year. And he had 33 stolen bases. So that's just massive upside all the way around. Now, he's expensive, but he got hurt 2 games ago. He joined the team again yesterday. I don't know if he pinch hit or what, but I know that they said that basically there's nothing like terrible, so he should be okay to return at some point soon. Byung-Ho Park is off to a horrific start. We're talking about a dude who hit 33 homers in this league last year with a 416 WOBA, a 280 ISO. He's currently at 300 WOBA, a 132 ISO, only hitting 2 home runs. He had a 6.2% home run percentage last year. He only got a 3.17 right now. So I expect him to turn around at some point. He's striking out at a 30% clip. Last year, only around 22. So I expect him to kind of turn things around. I do think Kiwoom in general has gotten off to a somewhat slow of a start offensively, and their record is decent. I just think offensively they're not really living up to their true potential, but I expect them to do that at some point. So Kiwoom also is an offense that's up there. So you got Doosan, LG, Kiwoom as my top 3. Then you got some secondary stacks after that I like the Dinos are on that list. KT Wiz attacking Cha's home run deal, and he was a little more home run prone last year as well. So like that's kind of it, taking up all the offenses. I mean, that's going to leave a lot of Giants, Hanwha, Samsung, all these teams extremely low owned. But it is what it is, man. I like the slate. I like it. And remember, guys, we got lock. The first lock is at 1. There is late swap on DraftKings, and we're going to have to come back at 3, 3:30, whatever, because 4 o'clock is the next wave of lock. And we got to update those lineups. So I'll be coming in, updating the lineups at WiseTake.com for the projections, for the cheat sheets. I'll do the first wave tonight when the lineups come out for the 1 o'clock games, and then I'll be waking my ass up again, doing the same damn thing for the 4 o'clock games at about 3 o'clock, 3:30, because I'm a man of the nation. I say it over and over again, and I'll continue to do it. Continue to do thy dirty. I'll take it from there. They did a second slate, a late slate, so if some of you don't want to do the double sweat or whatever, you could just play the late slate. I got about 35 teams in the late slate, and then I have my main stuff on the main slate. So I'm playing both slates. I'm hoping to make some money, man. I'm really hoping to make some money. It's been good so far. I think we're up like $4,000 so far in KBO since we've been doing this. So let's keep it rolling, man. Let's see how high we can get it. Let's see how big we can get the bankroll before the real sports do come back. And let's continue to do dirties, man. Hit that like button, guys. Really, really like if you hit that like button, guys. I know I didn't really come into the chat. Okay, I'll pop in the chat real quick. I hear you. Kevin Lloyd says, are Daewoo Kim and Buckley just openers? Most likely. Most likely. You're going to get that first inning for Doosan, but yeah, I think that they're both most likely going to just open a game. So it's a full-on bullpen game. For sure. Kevin Lloyd says, Giants carried me yesterday. That was a great call, man. That was awesome. Smoke Monster, any weather tonight? Kevin Lloyd addressed. I don't think there is. But I'll post it in my article later if there is. Smoke Monster, is there 2 ESPN games? The last time they had a split slate like this, they only had 1. So I don't know if they're gonna do that. But the last time they only had 1. But if you're not in Jersey, or if you're in a state where the DraftKings Sportsbook is legal, if you log in and you have a balance, any kind of balance, even if it's $1, they are streaming all the KBO games there. So I've been able to watch them from there, which is pretty dope. I saw something else that stuck out. Top 3 from Doosan. That's a good one. We could do that together. Let's pull up Doosan. Top 3 from Doosan. We've got so obviously Jose Fernandez. I'm sure he'll be even more popular because he just went nuts today with a home run, RBI doubles, all that shit. Chuan Choi has been hitting well above what he was putting up last year. I'm cool with including him. Jaewon Kim. These are probably your main 3. I do think that you can get these value guys are kind of interesting, and you can see some of them are projecting well. Like Subin Jung is actually projecting really well for us at his price. K-Min Her. So we actually have some guys with decent projections at cheap prices here for Doosan. But Jaewon Kim, Jose Fernandez are your main 2, dudes that you want to low with. And then come out here. Subin Jung has 26 stolen bases last year. Working some of these guys with them. But for power, it's those 2. For sure. Kevin Lloyd says, I'm definitely not fading Brooks, but he's projected to come in at about 55% ownership, which seems high. It's extremely high, yeah. The thing about this league is weird. It's it's been I guess because there's only 5 games, it's a lot more straightforward. In a regular MLB season, you got sometimes 12, 14, ridiculous amounts of games. And so there's just too many options. But I think on these smaller, more concentrated 5-game slates, ownership is a little more easy to predict. And it's been flat out it's been a chalk mixed with contrarian, which is what you always think of. And sometimes, in regular DFS, it's either super contrarian shit or leverage stuff. But this has just been look, that low owned stack. It was Doosan and a lot of Giants. As chalky as Doosan was, a lot of Giants were very low owned. And we've seen, the pitching has been interesting at times. We've seen some of the chalk pitchers bust. We've also seen chalk pitchers, the pitchers remind me of the quarterbacks in XFL, where you took PJ Walker every time, and he only got you a 19 or a 20, but that was enough because the rest of the field didn't do that well. So it's that's kind of how I approached it. But it's been good to me so far, man. I gotta say, man, it's really really been good for me doing this. Kevin Lloyd says KT is sneaky. I agree. Mike Concho says nice work as always. Appreciated. Marcus F. Man of the nation. Let's get it. Christopher Bassa, top 5-2-1 stack. Ooh, I haven't actually built any yet, so I don't know what'll fit. But my favorite, ideally, Like if I'm just going off the top of my head, my favorite would be like a 2, the 5 from LG, a 2 from Doosan, and maybe 1 from Kiwoom, something like that. Like I don't have the players, I don't know these guys, names as well. Christopher Basta, can Jay Fernandez match last night's game? Fade. I mean, he certainly can. He's been hot. I do think the ownership and the price is so high, ownership so high that I would be interested in getting some pivots, and I will. I'm going to have him capped at a certain point so I don't get too much of him, but it's tough, man. The dude don't strike out a ton. He puts a lot of balls in play, and he's playing a really shitty pitcher with a really shitty bullpen. I don't know. I don't think today's the day that I would fade him, but if you want to go underweight, I can understand it. You know what I'm saying? I get it. But anyway, Nation, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, man. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell. Check us out at WiseTake.com. Like I said, everything on the site is free. What you see on the screen in this show are projected lineups. What you see on the website right now are projected lineups. But once the lineups are confirmed later today, I will confirm it. Follow us on Twitter at @wise_take, and I will post it over on... I'll post on Twitter when the lineups are officially confirmed so that you guys know when to go in and either re-download the projections or refresh the cheat sheet, whatever it is you want to use. Randolph Rupp, it's Ranimo16. What up, Ranimo? Ranimo's one of our WiseTake Nation members, man. One of our loyal ass members. What's up, Ranimo? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Kevin Lloyd, my highest projected is Doosan 5, Dinos 2, LG Roberto Ramos. But he's the one-off king, man. Ramos is, I like that a lot, Lloyd. Kevin Lloyd, I do like that a lot. 5 from Doosan, 2 from NC, and then Roberto Ramos. I don't know what to project. I'll see what it looks like. I'll start crunching some teams as I'm writing my article, which will be out shortly. But yeah, it's a fun slate, man. It's a wild one. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm getting out of here, guys. Hit that like button once again because it really helps us out. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.